It is 3:26 a.m. at the Sanatorio Finochietto in Buenos Aires. The lobby is a cathedral of glass and steel, silent except for the low mechanical hum of the air conditioning. In the grainy, monochromatic reality of the security feed, we see a lone guard sitting at his desk. Suddenly, the automatic sliding doors, triggered by a motion sensor, hiss open to the cold night air. Guard doesn't reach for his radio or look for an intruder. He rises with the weary, practiced grace of a professional, clipboard in hand. He nods as if listening to a soft voice. He unhooks the velvet security rope. He even offers a wheelchair to the empty space before him, carefully noting a name in his logbook as the invisible guest walks past. When the hospital administration reviewed the logs the next day, the chill that went down their spines wasn't from the drafty door. The name the guard had recorded belonged to a woman who had died in that very hospital exactly 24 hours earlier. This interaction has sparked one of the most unsettling theories in modern folklore. The idea that the guard wasn't witnessing a ghost. He was the ghost himself, a spectral sentinel performing the duties of a life he no longer possessed. Welcome to the Sentinel's shadow. Today we go beyond the jump scares to investigate the phenomenon of the professional apparition, the workers who refuse to clock out even after the grave. In the case of the Finochietto Incident, the hospital tried to sanitize the story. Media director Guillermo Capulla claimed the door was simply malfunctioning, opening 28 times that night. But a mechanical glitch doesn't explain the logbook. A glitch doesn't provide the name of a dead patient. If this guard was indeed a phantom worker, he represents a terrifying new kind of haunting, the haunting of the bureaucrat. He is a manifestation of the hospital's own systems, a memory of a worker who perhaps died at his post and continues the motions of registration because he simply does not know how to stop. This isn't just an Argentine anomaly. To understand the weight of the worker who stays, we have to look back to the most documented case of professional hauntings in history, Eastern Airlines Flight 401. On a swampy December night in 1972, a Lockheed L-1011 TriStar plummeted into the Florida Everglades because of a single tiny light bulb. Captain Bob Loft and flight engineer Don Repo died trying to fix a landing gear indicator. Repo, in particular, spent his final moments alive in the hellhole, the avionics bay beneath the cockpit, desperately trying to manually confirm the gear was down. The horror didn't end in the swamp. To save money, Eastern salvaged parts from the wreckage, ovens from the galley, electronics from the flight deck, and installed them in other planes. Almost immediately, the reports began. Pilots and flight attendants, people trained to be rational and observant, began seeing Loft and Repo on the very planes carrying those recycled parts. These weren't traditional ghosts haunting a graveyard. They were co-workers. One flight engineer arrived early for his pre-flight checks and found a man in a second officer's uniform already sitting in his seat. The man, recognized instantly as the deceased Don Repo, turned and whispered, "You don't need to worry about the pre-flight, I've already done it," before vanishing into thin air. In another instance, a flight attendant reached for an oven handle in the galley, only to see Repo's face staring back at her from the glass, muttering a warning about a potential fire. These sightings were so credible that the Independent Flight Safety Foundation deemed the testimonies significant and trustworthy, eventually forcing the airline to remove every salvaged part to stop the apparitions. If the ghosts of Flight 401 were bound to their duty by recycled steel, the ghosts of the 2011 tsunami in Japan are bound by a desperate, unfinished journey. In the coastal town of Ishinomaki, taxi drivers began reporting ghost passengers. One driver recalled a young woman who hailed his cab near the station, asking to go to the Minamihama district, an area that had been completely flattened by the waves. When the driver told her there was nothing left there, she whispered, "Have I died?" By the time he looked in the rearview mirror, the seat was empty. There is a heartbreaking mental largesse in these stories. These drivers, often suffering from the same collective trauma, didn't run away in terror. Many of them would start their meters for these ghosts and pay the fares out of their own own pockets. It was a final act of service for a neighbor who couldn't find their way across the threshold. It suggests that in the wake of a disaster, the boundary between the living and the dead is thinned by the simple human need to get home. But what happens when the haunting is built into the very foundations of our modern world? In the Philippines, the intersection of urban development and the supernatural is literal. Take Star Mall Alabang, built on the former site of a cemetery. For decades, security guards there have reported phantom shoppers and the sensation of being followed through darkened corridors. The rise of the graveyard shift in the BPO industry has created a new landscape for these encounters. In the high-stress, fluorescent-lit call centers of Makati, security guards have reported human shapes on CCTV that press themselves against frosted glass doors. One guard described hearing running on a floor that had been locked and cleared for hours. On the monitor, a silhouette raised its hand as if asking for entry, but when his partner went to investigate, the room was empty. The horror in these stories often stems from the confirmation of the surveillance system, the second eye that verifies what the human heart fears. We live in an architecture of total visibility, where everything is tracked by RFID and high-definition cameras. In this world, a ghost is simply a glitch in the data. So, we return to the guard in the Sanatorio Finochietto. If the security guard is the ghost theory is true, it is perhaps the most tragic narrative of all. It describes a soul so entwined with the system, so dedicated to the shift that it doesn't even realize the shift has ended. It is the residual haunting of the industrial age, where the spirit isn't trapped in a castle but in a routine. In the solitude of the night shift, at the lowest point of human alertness around 3 a.m., the brain struggles with sensory deprivation. Some scientists say the hum of fluorescent lights produces infrasound that causes visual hallucinations, but science cannot explain why the logbook matches the death records. It cannot explain why a taximeter continues to run for an empty seat, or why a deceased flight engineer correctly identifies a mechanical fault in a plane he never lived to fly. These stories are meditations on devotion. They suggest that our commitment to our work, our neighbors, and our duty can survive even the end of our physical bodies. The modern world has built its temples out of concrete and monitored them with unblinking digital eyes. We thought we had eliminated the shadows, but we have only given them a new place to work. As you walk through an automatic door tonight, or catch a glimpse of a security guard sitting motionless behind a desk in a dark lobby, ask yourself, is he watching the cameras, or is he part of the feed? In the coldest hours of the night, someone is always keeping the log. Someone is always offering a wheelchair to those who can no longer walk. And for the sentinel at the gate, the next guest to walk through those doors might not be a person at all, but a memory waiting for the end of a shift that will never truly come.